Marketing mix, as we know, defined by Professor Kotler, was the 4 Ps. Now, when the arena expanded to services, something more needed to be understood, and over a period of time, services and goods have been separated from each other in terms of marketing. And now we know that the marketing mix for services has got 3 more components, namely people, physical evidence, and process. Okay, people, because people are the people who are the mainstay of services. Physical evidence, because since the process itself, the product itself is intangible, we need to have some tangibility built into it. And process, most of the services go through a series of events, so we have a process built into it. Now let's see each of these 3 Ps, which added to the 4 other Ps become the 7 Ps of services marketing. We will just look at the 3 Ps that we have discussed here. Let's look at people. People consist, firstly, looking internally, other employees. Okay, these are people who will interact with the customers, and they have to be a particular quality or a particular type, or particular grooming, particular training. Okay, so we'll have to be very careful about who are these employees, because ultimately they become the product for us. Next is our customers. Customers also need to have some amount of understanding of the product. Otherwise, since the product is constructed during the service process between the employees and the customers, the input from the customers is equally important, and it plays a role in the delivery of the product. Third is employee research. We include employee research in people because it plays a very important part in defining the service itself. Unless we do a lot of research and hone in on the right people, train them properly, groom them properly, motivate them properly, all this goes into the employee research. Okay, now this can be further expanded, but we'll move on to the next one, which is the physical evidence. Physical evidence, as the word denotes, is to do with what surrounds the service environment itself. First thing is the facility design. Wherever the service is taking place, how is it? How are the instruments and other implements? How are they placed? How are they designed? How are they used? Okay. Second is the latest equipments, the dated equipments, the used equipments. They carry a connotation to the service itself. If the equipment are new, up to date, error free, then the physical evidence is good, and a good quality of service is understood by the customer. Another thing which customers look forward in physical evidence is the signage. If there's enough evidence around to guide the customers into different sections of the facility, you stand here, you queue up here, you sit here, or you engage in a discussion over here, you pay here, you exit here. All these are signages which are required within that premises, and they form the physical evidence of the signage part. Small things like employee dress also comes into physical evidence. If you see the larger services, let us say the army, for example, physical evidence in terms of employee dress is huge. There's so much of variety and so much of detail that goes into employee dress that it itself becomes part of the product. Let's move on to the third, other tangibles, of course. Let's move on to the third P, which is the process. Now, process will mean that there will be a flow of activity. For example, if you get into a hospital, which is a service. Now, as you enter, you have a welcome desk. The welcome desk will take you to the maybe the consulting. The consulting will further ask you to go into the place where maybe a few tests have to be done. Once that test is done, there will be another activity, forward activity, where you pick up the results of the test. There will be a further consultation with maybe a senior consultant or a senior doctor, where the test reports will be viewed and it will be processed. So this flow of activity needs to be understood in any service situation. Next, we have number of steps. Okay, if the flow is smooth, if the number of steps are large, we need to understand exactly how many steps to keep, depending on the complexity of the service, depending on the convenience of the customer. We need to understand the number of steps involved. Depending on the resources availability, we want to keep the steps more or less. Also, in services, very often what happens is customers need to get involved in the service. Now, we have to decide well in advance what sort of involvement the customer will have in the delivery of the service. So this needs to be understood. We have self-service restaurants, we have full-service restaurants. We have part-service restaurants also, where you go and pick up the food and bring it to your table. Somebody else comes around and picks up the soiled plates and puts them back for reuse. Okay, so the amount of customer involvement also is a very big issue in process, which is the third special P of services marketing mix.